Wait. Did that just happen? That arrogant piece of shit, scumbag, bully actually apologized? Okay, I am happy. This is exactly what I wanted to see. Don't get me wrong, he is still not my favorite character, and I still don't like him. But now I can fully say, finally! This is the true character development. People have said he has gone through character development all the time, but I've said, no. He has changed a little bit, but he is still the same arrogant douchebag jerk-ass bully has always been. Until now. Now he has finally gone through the character development that I was looking for. And yes, I did take off my glasses for that, because that's just how surprising this Boku no Hero Academia chapter really is. Yes, because this is me, the angry anime fan that is very reviewer, and this is Boku no Hero chapter 3222. I'm gonna review that, even though I technically mostly just reviewed it in Zero. In it, Deku wanted to let go of Ignium's hands, but of course he couldn't because he was overwhelmed emotionally. As Ochako let them go through the thing, it's Kirishima who captures and also gets his moment with Deku, where he actually says that he realized that the child that was, the boy that saved to save a pal, which we all know was Bakugo, that was, he realizes that must have been Deku. And he's saying that despite the fact that you didn't have any special power thing, you did the one thing I have never been able to do. Rush straight forward even though you were always scared. And that is something he admired about Deku. And that is, and he's also saying that is the exact same thing we're going to do now. And the rest of the Class A also appears, especially as they are guided by those that cannot fly or float or anything else like that. It's a very fast-paced thing, especially the fact that Kirishima read Rayato follow that through Endeavor's thing. They can't keep up? They can keep up plenty. And so Mina Ashiro get a small scene of the fact that with almost tears in her eyes saying that she doesn't want to lose anybody else. She's obviously referring to Midnight Sensei. The fact that they found her dead body. And the fact that and they want to attend classes together. Deku is still a little bit adamant as light has still not returned to his eyes, saying he wants to go back. But he will only cause trouble. And at last, the one who enters the scene is Bakugo. I wanted Ochako to be the one to bring him back, but in the end, it always has to be the rival. Granted, what he did here was the exact thing he needed to do. And he begins to do a very long monologue, saying like there was some things he wanted to say to Deku before, well, Shigaraki made Swiss cheese out of him. And the fact that he begins a very long monologue that when he was young, he always looked down on Deku for being a quirkless. And mind you, that is not a good thing! He doesn't care how much you say he has changed. It still is very adamant that he looked down on him because of that. That is still a racism in a way. And but it is also implied in this scenario. Implied, it's basically confirmed that one of the reasons why he began to bully Deku is not only because he looked down on him because he was quirkless, but it's mostly the fact that despite him being quirkless, he always felt Deku was above him. Bakugo was the popular kid, he had many friends, and Deku had no one, and yet still Bakugo felt like he wasn't ahead of Deku. He always felt Deku was ahead of him. Maybe because despite not having a quirk, despite being timid, despite being so unpopular, Deku was always kind and always forgiving, and many things more. Bakugo was violent, rageful, and prideful. So he felt out of that. And that's one of the reasons why he bullied Deku, because he couldn't bear looking at Deku, the fact that he couldn't accept why he were, which is another implication that he couldn't accept himself for being weak. Um, and But the more he tried to do that, the more he realized he was losing the fight. Especially since when they got into UA, the fact that Deku kept on pushing forward. And it's worth noting, as he explained to this, they changed from children to their middle school outfits to the UA outfits to basically show that the entire life journey they have had have come full circle. And it's the fact that when, as we all know, when Deku got to UA, it was complete opposite. Deku became the popular one, not Bakugo. But the thing is that Deku was always the same, while Bakugo slowly changed. But he also didn't change enough because he didn't realize what truly changed it. Deku was always the same, and that's why he always felt like Deku was still ahead of him. Because he began to realize that it wasn't the fact that he hated Deku, or the fact that he looked down on Deku when he used to be quirkless. It's the fact that Deku was always Deku, kind-hearted boy, something Bakugo could never be. And that was something he realized he lost that fight. And we all know Bakugo hates to lose a fight. As he realized who Deku had become, he actually forced himself, Bakugo forced himself to look inside himself and realize that he saw Deku's inner strength, and not just his kindness, but his inner strength, his selflessness, everything more, and saw his own weaknesses, his temper, his ego, everything. And then he says, the one thing I never thought he would say, the one thing I had demanded him to say. And that is worth noting enough for me to take off the glasses. Izuku. Yes, he doesn't call him Deku in this scene. He calls him Izuku. I'm sorry for everything. Yes, the arrogant piece of shit bully apologized. This is something I have been demanding forever. I think, and a lot of people did it too. I said I would never like Bakugo, or at least realize his potential, unless he got down on his knees and apologized. Granted, he did not get down on his knees, but he lowered his head and genuinely said, I'm sorry. He even called Deku Izuku now. Something he has not done since they were kids. Further, which at long last eclipsed everything. Giving Izuku the thing he has always wanted, his former friend back. He always admired Bakugo, and he always wanted to consider him a friend, even though Bakugo always looked down on him and bullied him. The full circle is complete. The friendship is there at last. Bakugo is still a bully and a jackass. And as well as, maybe he's no, or maybe scratch that. Maybe he's no longer a bully, but he's still a jackass. However, he apologized. And that is enough to bring back the light into Deku's eyes. To just further show how much he has wanted that. Because this shows that even though Deku has always been so forgiving in everything he likes, I think deep down in his innerst, biggest mind, he has always wanted to just hear those words. He wanted his friend back. His one and only friend. And the fact that Bakugo continues, saying that the path he has been walking has not been wrong, which is something that the second user of One for All also said. But it's also saying that right now you can barely stand. So it's the fact that the path is not wrong, but it's wrong is thinking that you should take care of this all by yourself. When you no longer can stand, we will help you stand. And you have lived up to the ideals to surpass All Might, because you have admired All Might. So we're gonna save you civilians and the people on the streets. Saving people is how we win. Again, eclipsing the fact that Bakugo only cares about winning. But this implies, again, a kindness of sort, saying like, he now will save people because that means winning. Eclipsing that slight kindness into a winning-like concept, which Bakugo always had. Saying that what Deku has been doing is not wrong. He is shouldering everything is not wrong. But what is wrong is shouldering everything and just keeps on going alone when you can no longer stand or depend on others, which is something that All Might never did. All Might shouldered everything by himself and he pushed people away, and we all know what happened. Yes, All Might was amazing, But some shouldering everything by himself will only get you that far. It's and yes, All Might was ahead of every pro hero ever, but it shows that doing all this stuff is not good for you mentally, and it's not even good for you in a psychological thing. So doing the same thing together with people is actually surpassing All Might, because Deku will then do the one thing All Might never did: trust people completely, and that will surpass All Might. And is that during that time Deku says that everyone is ahead of him. And when he says that, he means that in a way, I think emotionally. He realizes that he was the stubborn one. As we all know, Deku has always been putting himself down. But in this scenario, he is saying they are ahead of him because they are mature. As he begins to collapse, he's saying, I'm sorry for everything. So Bakugo catches him and says, we got it. Deku, in a way, is slowly back. However, as everyone looks at the scene with very somber-like faces, we finally see Uchako's face of it all, as Yao Momo saying that they have cleared the first hurdle, but now another hurdle remains. And Uchako is ready for that. As Deku awakens, we see him actually be before the UA barrier, and we also see 13. She's finally taken off the helmet, because yes, it's been confirmed that despite the fact that 13 talks in a Boku, it is actually a woman underneath that helmet. Although that design is slightly androgynous, if you ask me. But that doesn't matter. UA actually brings up full speed what's been happening around the country, and since Deku is living. A lot of holdouts that are inside this barrier are people that have run away from anti-hero vigilantes, as well as protesters. Because those that are outside are those kind of things. Anti-hero protesters who has formed vigilante corps or violent pilgrimage, doing like simply riding the wave of escaped convicts. Every day, and despite the fact that they hate heroes, also, people grow wary of the anti-hero ideology and decide to move into shelters, showing that they are afraid of even their own people. Saying this chaos, this is not the scene that Destro should have wished for. This is chaos! And more radical violence of forming gangs that are easy, enough to track down. And the UA barrier is highly big. It's almost it almost looks like a fortress, almost like a prison of sorts. Everything doing their best to improve the situation, but we all know it's a losing battle right now because something is missing. But she is also saying that Deku's having restrained a lot of different villains actually has helped pull in the police on the burden. And it's during this time that Zero is pointing out as Deku wakes up the fact that this barrier is only the tip of the iceberg. The Invisible Girl gets a line here that is saying that it can actually combine with Shiketsu, which probably means that the Shiketsu is also going to come back into this line. And Deku's saying that he wants to honor Class A and actually return to them. He wants to be with them. He wants to fight beside them. But he can't go back. And why is that? Well, because of ungrateful citizens. Yes, as they open the door, a lot of different people begins to emerge. And they have finally connected all the dots, given it wasn't perhaps not that difficult. But they have all pointed out that while they may not know the full story about One for All, maybe, they have at least connected the dots that Deku is the one that Shigaraki and All for One is after. Meaning that if they feel like if they are placing him here, he will become a ticking time bomb. These ungrateful citizens are screaming that you guaranteed our safety. And we abandoned our hearts because we thought we'd be safe. So if a ticking time bomb is here, if this is UA, let him hide somewhere else. And Deku, with a very sad face, is actually preparing to go away. We actually see how ragged he is. But it's during this final moment that Uchako finally makes a move, warmly grabbing Deku's hand and saying it's okay. She mentions in an inner monologue that Ida, Bakugo, and everyone else made this happen. They opened Deku's eyes enough to listen and realize that he is not completely alone. But now the biggest hurdle is the fact that Deku wants to return, but he also feels like he shouldn't because he's so afraid of the people's criticism. But this is actually, as I said before, I was a bit saddened that Ochako wasn't the one to bring back Deku. But the bringing back Deku is not yet complete, as Yaomo said. Which is exactly why this is the scenario where Ochako can bring back that moment. And why is that? Well, because she is saying the same line that she has said some time ago. This is, we won't let you go. Well, that's not what she has said. But what she's saying is, because when a hero needs protecting, who will be there to protect them? Something I have always loved to hear from Ochako, because that is actually very true. These ungrateful citizens are actually, I understand their fear. They're not wrong with the fact that Deku being here may actually be a target. But again, Shoto was not wrong either that All for One may very well attack UA just to spite Deku. And just to demolish people's opinions even more. But the fact is so their fear is not wrong, but they are still ungrateful with the fact that Deku has been risking his life out there, restraining a lot of different people, and even stopped some vigilante gangs. And now all he gets is just get him out of here. So, and again, a lot of heroes have quit. Some has quit because they're dirty cowards. Others has quit because they cannot handle criticism. But most of all is the fact that they are quitting because they're getting depressed. Some realize that they cannot save people. Yes, in the end that's kind of cowardly, but it's also true. But but if anything, as we've seen from Power Arms, it's the most emotional thing ever. Is the fact that there are no therapists here. As Ochako said, who will save a hero when they need saving? No one! Because these people will just push them down. No one can bear that anxiety. And I suffer from a lot of different anxiety myself. So that just means that will destroy Hero's community, because no one will be there to save them. So what Ochako is saying here is the exact same thing. And this is the one moment that will bring Deku back. I don't know how she will do it. And the fact that I had to wait for so long to wait for it is actually pissing me off even more. But Ochako is saying here that who is gonna save a hero when they need saving? She is. But how she's gonna do that? How is she gonna shame these people? I hope she will, because she must say to them, who will save heroes? And maybe they will say, there's a hero, they don't need saving. And then says, then what are you? Also the fact that the minor translation of this before seems to imply that the anti-hero factions had actually a group leader. And if you ask me, I think I know who is I actually want the anti-hero faction to have a group leader, Stain. And I know what you're thinking, Stain is not anti-hero. It's not hero-hating. And I'm saying, yes, he is. He doesn't see true heroes. In fact, I think that scene when he saw All Might and Deku is not a scene for him to realize that what he wished for was bad. No, I think that is a scene to make sure that what he will desire will be stronger than ever. And maybe he will appear again. And maybe with a rival gang. With revolting gangs. And then Izuku, together with Class A, will defeat him. Either way, Ochako, please save Deku. Because he must be saved. And stop these ungrateful citizens. So yeah, the chapter goes to Bakugo. You finally apologized. I'm happy. You're not my favorite character. But at least now, even I admit, this is character development.